You're watching me right now on the OBSBot Tail 2, and I want to do a bit of an odd review of it for you. Hi, welcome to Open for Business. It's so good to be with you. I'm on this OBSBot, and more than likely, if you've been looking at one of these Tail 2s, you know it's rechargeable, and you're wondering, well, what would I use it for? Well, I had the opportunity to get early access to one for my church. The company provided it so we could test it and provide some interesting use cases. We do live worship services. We do some on-location little devotionals that are recorded outside, all kinds of different things that we could test it with and then share back to them so they could have a customer use case story. But I didn't actually get to do that. Because right after it arrived, just days after it arrived, I hurt my back, and I've spent the last few months primarily laying down. I can stand up for a while, but I'm certainly not walking, hiking trails and getting to do all the interesting things you can do with this camera. This camera has a built-in gimbal, so it can stabilize as it's moving, do all these interesting things. But then it struck me that in that, there's actually something really remarkable about this camera that isn't what you're going to see in the other reviews. Because you're going to read about how I can do all those live action kinds of things. And it can do movement tracking. I haven't been moving a whole lot to track. So why even have a camera like this? Well, it's actually come in incredibly handy. And so this is where I'd like to highlight how the OBSBot Tail 2 can help you if you find yourself with limited mobility for a period of time. Because the thing I quickly realized after I hurt my back, I do all this filming in addition to live preaching, and so how was I going to move into doing some of that again after a few weeks where I simply couldn't? How was I going to move into doing that again when running cabling for cameras and wiring for all kinds of audio equipment and trying to control stuff and bending over and adjusting tripods and doing all that? Well, it wasn't really practical. I could do it briefly, and then I wouldn't be able to do it again for several weeks if I even tried. I'd just re-injure myself. Well, having a camera that you can adjust without actually having to move it is incredibly useful in that case. And I've been using this OBSBot Tail 2 for several months now and found it incredibly useful that I can take my phone here with the app, and I can have that app. And if I set up just the tripod, I have a tripod that's tall enough that I can just click the buttons to lower the legs. I don't have to bend over, set it up, put the OBSBot Tail 2 on it, and then instead of trying to bend over to turn the different knobs to adjust the tripod and moving back and forth, I can fix myself in the position that I need to be in for recording, and then go into the app, hit the camera button, and start adjusting what it's going to record there. I'm not holding, there we are. And so you have an interface that looks a lot like other camera interfaces on a smartphone. It's nothing dramatically different. We've reviewed other cameras like the Mevo. It feels very inspired by Mevo's interface. A little bit of that, a little bit of just the standard iPhone camera interface. But the nice thing about it is I can get this camera where the lens is pointed in just the right place, that I can get it, if the tripod's slightly crooked, I'm not struggling with it. I'm just turning it a slight bit on the controls for the camera, and I can get it all in the right place without all of that fussing around. And unlike, say, using an SLR where you're going to need an HDMI input card and HDMI cable, and you're running cables to your computer and so on, what can I do with this? I can turn it on to NDI mode. A wonderful thing. If you're not familiar with NDI technology, you should get yourself familiar with it. I can turn it onto that mode, have it go straight into OBS on my computer, the free broadcasting software. I'm using that to record this, in fact, right now. And the only wire I have running right now, I have my laptop recording, have the OBSBot on Wi-Fi. It's charged up with this battery, so I don't have to worry about getting to a plug and bending over and plugging it in. I can charge it any place that's convenient for me. The only wire I have running right now is a microphone. I'm using a Neat microphone, Neat brand, that is, that I have on a USB cable running from my computer. The one con I'd say with this camera, especially as they do envision it being useful for action shots and so on, is that it doesn't have a built-in microphone. So be aware of that. Although, in fairness, very few camera microphones are in any way, shape, or form decent enough for serious recording. So it makes sense to leave it off, but it's still good to be aware of. But all that said, I have one cable, and I'm able to do the whole recording. And that's been so useful. And so, yes, you're going to, if you go around YouTube, you'll find all kinds of reviews of this camera where people are taking on adventures and setting up big setups for live events and so on. But if you do find yourself either temporarily or even if you're permanently in a situation where you can't easily manipulate things, there's a great quality to this camera simply for the fact that it's so easy to get it exactly where you want it. And then just use the settings here. I don't have to keep going back and forth. I use a mirrorless camera oftentimes for filming, and all the dials are on the back of it, right? So I can't sit down right now with my injury, but when I would sit down, I'd be sitting in my chair, I'd get up, walk around to the camera, adjust settings, go back, sit down, realize it's not quite right, get up again. And that's assuming that you even have a confidence monitor of some sort that allows you to see that it's recording properly. Maybe you record it and then you go back over to your computer and see. But by having it on the phone where I can look at the phone and see, and being able to make all those adjustments wirelessly from the phone reliably, it takes away those challenges and it makes it so much easier, especially if you find that you're in a situation like I've been in these last few months where it's not as easy to do. Take that for granted normally. So, yes, you're going to see all those reviews, but as we look at it here open for business right now, I just want to mention that that particular use case has been remarkable for me. It's a very nice camera. It's very capable. If you do want to do live events, we use PTZ point pan tilt zoom cameras in the church that I pastor, and so they're useful in general because sometimes people move around or you have different things that you want to turn the camera to, and if you're not a huge venue where you have camera people actually panning the cameras and you need one person to do it, say from a control computer, it's useful in that case, absolutely. Has good color, has lots of adjustments for exposure and white balance. Right now I'm in a room with a lot of natural light, but it's a little cloudy, so I have it on a cloudy white balance because I like a little more control than letting the camera do it automatically. But all that to say, it works really well, but it's worked especially well in this particular use case for me because, let's face it, the camera on an iPhone is really good. And so a lot of times if I'm out and about, while it's not perfect and it certainly doesn't have a built-in gimbal, this works really well. But if for whatever reason you need a camera that's a little bit more sophisticated, or you need a camera where you can use your phone to control it, well, this is great for that. And the NDI capability is fantastic. We've already written extensively and open for business about NDI, but beyond just trying to avoid cables in this setting, let me just again mention you're using it in a live setting. Fantastic being able to have multiple cameras coming into a tool like OBS. They come in wirelessly or over Ethernet. They come in and you can switch between them and you're not having to run all kinds of dedicated video lines. It works great. It works reliably. And after some initial bugs in the early firmware that have been resolved by OBSBot, this camera has worked very reliably in that regard. So that's the OBSBot Tail 2 in a unusual setting. And whether in that setting or another setting, it's a really nice camera. It's just over $1,000, so it's not a cheap camera, but it's a very nice camera. And compared to, for example, the Mevo Start, which we've reviewed and I love and I've recommended before, it has the distinct advantage that it can pan, tilt, and zoom. So if you imagine buying 3 or 4 Mevo Starts to get different angles, well, you might find in certain settings that it's more advantageous to buy one OBSBot Tail 2 that can actually move with action. It's very flexible in that. It has a zoom. That's fantastic as well. So it's a very nicely rounded camera. I'm very pleased with it. I have to say, for my particular use case, it's been a lifesaver. And I think there will be plenty of use cases where you find that as well. Well, thanks for joining us on this Open for Business video. You can check out all our reviews, both written and video, by going to ofb.biz. That's ofb.biz. And check out our extensive coverage of technology, culture, and so much more. Have a great day.